YouTube channel. My name is Chagozema Dindu, and this is Choices with Chichi. And I'm still with my girl,
Plangret Dabup,
the greatest Dabup that ever lived.
yes.
Today I'm so happy. Our topic today, is week 5, and our topic is going to be on communication. What did I say? Communication.
Big C.
The big C. And if you ask me, it is the glue, the gum that holds week 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 6, 7, and 8. Remember that this is an 8-part series on notable unpopular lessons we learned during our premarital counseling session class program. And we just thought to take out some time and share with you what we learned, how we've applied this in our lives, and basically spread hope. That's all we're about in, Choices with Chichi. And I just want to say, if you haven't watched our previous series or installments 1, 2, 3, 4, please check our previous posts. It will benefit you because we'll be making a lot of references to our past installments. Communication. What is communication? Good question.
Like textbook question.
I know. So you know how you just feel like, and most times when you ask people that question, they think it's about talking, like being able to talk, being eloquent, being able to persuade. No. So in PMC we actually learned that it was a whole lot more than just opening your mouth and going on and on. Is sharing yourself verbally and non-verbally with somebody such that they understand you enough to respond. And I'd like to take it a notch higher by saying understand, respond, and then act based on their understanding. Because for me, if you don't understand and you say you've understood me and there are no commensurate actions, then there is a problem.
Exactly.
Yes, so communication is very key. Communication is to love, is to marriage, is to relationships. What blood is to the body. I'll say that again. Communication is to love, marriage, relationships. What blood is to the body. So if blood is very important, if you cannot live without blood, then your relationships will probably die without communication. And like we earlier said, communication is not just talking. It's big, it's deep. Now, before we go too deep into communication, I've noticed that a lot of our backgrounds come into play here. When you see how your parents talked with one another, how they resolved issues, and the general atmosphere in your house as a result of communication or the lack of it, it somehow influences, what happens in our homes. And we can't shy away from it. In fact, friendship, I think we should do something on background. Background is strong. It's strong. And you need to be deliberate about it. Like, you need to know that this is what is obtainable where I'm coming from. You need to analyze and criticize it and understand if it's first of all, if it's ideal.
Yeah.
If it's ideal and if it's something you want to take into your marriage. And don't forget, we're talking about communication and how your background has affected, your ability to communicate or the lack of it in your relationship.
Yeah, that's very true, because I know, talking with friends and talking with family friends, you have a variety of opinions, or you have different experiences when it comes to communication. There's some houses where once the parents are quarreling, everybody in the streets
will be
those dramatic types like African Magic that they run out. This one is holding machetes, this one is shouting. Then there's some that tell you, I've never seen my parents quarrel. So the moment you go into a relationship and issues come up, you're taken aback, like, what? We quarrel? Like, some people are like, I've never seen my parents quarrel. Then, more commonly, the one of sweeping issues under the rug. Like, so there's an issue, probably even very traumatic, that's happened in the family. 20 years down the line, it's affecting everybody's life, but nobody wants to address it.
Good. We'll be fine.
Just like, we're fine.
The grace of God.
We're going. Then you have the typical Nigerian experience where, I don't know what it is in the air or the water, but we are so savage. I was telling someone that I feel it's a coping mechanism that we all develop to live in this country. Sometimes savage responses.
Oh God,
and being able to. I had a friend that said, that if somebody is just looking for a trouble, just look for one thing on their body to insult. One thing that will pay the person. You just, and I was laughing, and I thought about it. I was like, wow, imagine
but you know that's exactly how we are configured. I don't think there was a formal training. I didn't attend one anyway.
Yeah.
But there's just that informal configuration, and we are channeled to communicate along the lines of sarcasm. What did you call it? Savage responses.
Savage responses.
And I want to say that communication is not just when you have issues.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you say communication, you're thinking of conflict resolution. No, you're thinking about communication in your everyday life. Your finances, like we talked about, last week, being able to talk about every and anything. Oh, the sun is shining. Why is the sun shining? How you're feeling. Oh, I feel butterflies in my tummy. Funny enough, we'll talk about week 8. We've been talking about week 8 for a long time. Communication also fuels your sex life. Aww, PG-13. She's going to be 13 next month. Don't worry.
I don't know all these things you're saying.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, immaculate conception. It's okay. Let's just move on. No savage responses.
No savage responses.
Yeah, like I'm talking about communication, talking, being able to talk, the ability to listen, understand, and respond over all matters, all issues in life. And it's a skill. Thankfully, it's a skill. Thankfully, you don't have to wish it. So the question is, what is communication? And I had already, answered that. Another thing that stood out to me during, our week 5 experience with communication is the fact that they said, and this is very scary, that there are different aspects of communication. That there are different types of communication. There is content, what you really want to say is 7%. The tone by which you now express yourself is 37 or 38%. I saw it somewhere. And then your non-verbal communication skill is 55%. I was like, wow. Yes, it's a wow something. So it means if I want to say shut the door, for instance, what the content of what I want to say, the question is, what do I want to achieve? I want the door closed. So I say shut the door. Or shut the door. Or shut the door.
Really, what was that face?
I think that's the face of dummy. I said shut the door. So I'm saying that you can say the same thing in 10 different ways, and you have 10 different messages because of the person's tone and non-verbal, gestures. What is your tone? Voice inflections. Your non-verbal gestures are your facial expressions.
Rolling your eyes.
I know, twisting your mouth like. And then actions. Someone can be talking and you're not saying anything, but you're like
your phone.
Or you're pressing your phone, or you walk out. You've not said anything, right? It's not verbal, but then you're giving the person 99%. The person is sure, 99% sure of what you mean by those actions. So that stood out to me, and that was really shocking, and it helped me, hey God, meditate on how good or how bad I was, as a communicator. So friendship, that was week 5.
Week 5 was very enlightening, especially because sometimes I think at the relationship stage, when you're having issues, communication is an issue, but you don't really know how bad it is or what is wrong with the communication that you people have. So when they broke it down and made it so easy, it was simpler to say, oh, this is my problem. Maybe I'm not concise enough, I don't listen properly, and all those kinds of stuff. And then when you have the solution, you can now do better after doing that. And I think for me, where it stayed with the parts of communication, and there were 3 parts that we need to understand, or 3 aspects of communication. And the first is talking. Now that's the part we all enjoy, especially when you're offended. You will wax lyrical like, that was how you did this thing in 1995. That's how you did this thing. Yeah, I even heard your mother did this thing, and then you keep talking and talking and talking. But the point is not just for some people enjoy the sound of their own voice. When you're communicating, that's not the plan. That's not the aim. So the talking aspect is for you to basically put across. The person who is talking mainly in this scenario is the person who wants to say something. Maybe you're offended, or you have an expectation that is not being met, or you have an idea you want to express. Basically, you want to express yourself. So now, the thing is that the connotation that comes with communication most of the time is that there's an issue. because whether you like it or not, it's very, very common to have conflict in relationships. And I think there's a whole week on conflict resolution, so we may touch back and forth. Back and forth. But in talking, the first thing is that you need to, we just had this discussion before before we started recording, and the aim is for the person to understand you. Now, you're not trying to show you're smarter than them, you're not trying to show that you are so offended. It's not like, it's not before a jury. You just want the person to understand you, which means you have to be clear, you have to be concise. Now, if you're like me, that my brain hardly shuts down, like sometimes my brain has like 50 tabs open at once. So when you're speaking on one issue, another issue just pops up, another issue pops up, and then you know they're like, wait, what was I saying? No, most of the time, just try to stay on course and say, this is what I'm trying to say, and communicate and make sure the person understands you. Then if what you're talking about is something, or it's some sort of conflict resolution, you also try to stay on the issue, not on the person. My husband and I, is a running joke with us, because the person in charge of PMC in church, deacon in charge, was saying, he gave an example with those of you that quarrel and say you always. Oh
yes, please, when you're quarreling, avoid always, never. Like,
so absolute. Because I can assure you, for every time you tell your spouse they always do this, they can give you 10 times they've not done it.
Are you sure they understand? So let me give you an example. You're always leaving that door open. That means if people are married for 10 years, there's no one time in the person's 10 years of marriage that they close the door. You know, so those are some mistakes we make in communication, and then it really hurts. And you wonder why it's hurting, or the person feels so offended because of such absoluteness or absolute words like never. You are always wrong.
Never come on time. You're never ready. And most of the time, if you notice, most of the time when this comes up, it's probably a weakness the person has. So the person can be genuinely trying to work on it,
and then you just,
and when you come, you hit the person with always. It just feels like, oh, anything I do is not good enough, so it doesn't matter. So try to stay on the issue, and don't be insultive. I think we've said this in previous weeks. Please don't be insultive. There are things you cannot take back. You know that those stories used to tell us when they're little about how when you break an egg, you cannot pack it back, and when you hit a nail in the wall and you take it out, it's never the same. Don't be insultive. Don't hit below the belt. This background thing I was talking about, I was telling her that some people I saw growing up, not necessarily at home, but I just noticed that for some people, when they're quarreling, the aim was to just hit below the belt.
Sarcasm, Nigerian sarcasm. And it's not a Nigerian thing, but I'm just saying that it's common because we do savage responses. Yes.
Sometimes it's deeper than sarcasm. You just go for that person's secret shame or the person's secret pain, something they may not even know about their families.
Or not want to remember.
Something the person told you when they were vulnerable. And somebody told you they've never told anybody before. And that is the one. So I remember. Just like bag up.
I remember when we got married, the first few months, I don't know what we were arguing about. I don't know where I left. You know when she says stay on the matter, it's real. You know how you just leave what people are talking about and you start digging. That's how. And I don't even know where I strayed into. And my husband was like, my love, I don't know how to quarrel like this, so hey. And you know, for the first time in my life, I now sat and I understood that not the way. There are better ways. Sometimes you just want to start bringing in past issues. And then, I don't know, like, does it make you feel better? Does it help you exaggerate the matter? You know, sometimes. And sometimes, honestly, I also feel that it also depends on the people involved. So I feel like some people feel like if they don't exaggerate or be so dramatic in their communication, they won't get their attention or their points will be made. So I'm just saying that we need to balance it. Let's communicate in truth, let's communicate in love. And one principle in communication is that your words should be gracious. At the end of the day, you and I, what we really want is understanding. You don't set out to destroy somebody's dignity. You don't want to reduce somebody to less than one kobo, so that when you finish talking, the person will just look at themselves like, okay, let me just go die now. Nothing else.
I'm so useless after all.
When you want to talk, whether it's conflict resolution, whether it's just to express yourself, or whether it's just to have a regular conversation with your spouse or your spouse-to-be or your friends, all you want to achieve is understanding. And in achieving understanding, there is need for graciousness, being gracious. And I think we talked about it week 1, 2, or 3. Just check the previous weeks when we talked about the principle of graciousness. Let your words edify. Whenever people talk to you in whatever form, in conflict resolution or just regular conversations, let them be happy that they spoke to you. Even in conflict, you can be gracious. I think that's when we talked about the sandwich. One of the times we talked about the sandwich approach. So you have your bread, you have the content, and then you have bread again to cover. So you give the person a compliment, then you talk about the main issue on ground, and then you see it with another compliment or a nice word. How many people will respond negatively to that kind of approach?
And ironically, what I learned from you just recently when we were talking about something,
I thought somebody
was she was saying that in times of conflict, don't reduce your whole relationship or your whole marriage to that particular issue. So it's like this thing that this person has done is the worst thing that they will ever do. They've ever done, like anything that has come before this, any good thing they've done before this, you rubbish it in your mind. Nullified. So you just go in as if you're attacking. No, just that's why sometimes you need to be conscious of. That's being gracious. You need to be conscious of what has worked and the fact that, okay, this is just an obstacle we're trying to overcome. It's not the sum total of our whole relationship.
Yeah, that's very key. That's very key, because sometimes you guys have lived 5 years, 6 years, then I don't know, the person comes back late, buy medication for you. So I'm just saying, and then you quarrel and overdo, and then it's like, have I ever even done anything good? So don't reduce, like you said, don't reduce your relationship to just that one situation, and you forget all the good times you guys have had before.
Another important principle we learned in talking is that you come from the I feel perspective, and not necessarily from the I feel perspective, and not necessarily from like you said, emphasizing things that have gone on before. So even the Bible says that nobody knows what is in the mind of a man except the spirit that is in the man. So sometimes your spouse's actions may be offensive, they may have hurt you, but at the back of your mind, you know that was not their intention. And sometimes you need to leave some gap for that intention. So when you're speaking from the I feel perspective, you're just trying to communicate that, okay, you did this. This may not have been your intention, but this was the effect it had on me. I felt disregarded when you did this. I felt belittled when you did this. Not you did this to belittle me. You did this to I put it to you that you wanted to offend me.
I put it to you.
All these things are not easy, because the truth is that sometimes when you're angry, especially in the heat of the moment, your flesh is just telling you to just go in for the kill and tell this person, show them. But it takes grace, and it's something you need to adopt. Let's move on to listening.
Listening. So I have a confession. So before that was before.
Let's bring the husbandman to testify.
It's a good thing the husbandman is not here. But before, right? So when you're resolving conflict, because I don't want to talk too much, I don't really
like Nigeria.
Yeah, so I just did that to introduce this. Like, so you don't listen. What we learn, you don't listen with the sole aim of responding. Some people are listening and they're taking notes. It's like, number one, I will come back to this thing you're saying. No. And then you don't listen, to point out faults, because that way you have an end in mind, and that might not even be what the person is trying to achieve. Another point I want to make at this juncture is that there are 4 of them. Let's see, 3. There are 4 of them. There is talking, there is listening, there is understanding, and there is responding. And you can't jump any aspect of these communications to the next. So if you're listening, so remember there's talking and then there's someone who is listening. So if you're listening to jump understanding and responding, there is a problem. But if you're listening to understand the I feel principle, if you're trying to understand why this person feels so hurt, or why this person holds this judgment, or why this person wants to make a decision, or why this person feels what they feel, then there is now understanding, right? And that point we made about listening is that your non-verbal expressions say more in the listening aspect than even the person talking. There are a lot of things you can do wrong when you're listening. Your body language, your hissing, you're shaking your leg, paka, 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 or you have a book in front of you or your phone, yeah, those are very poor listening habits, and it can just put someone off. It can end the conversation, and if you keep getting it wrong at the talking or listening stage, you can have a very failed relationship at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think I just need to emphasize again that listening is not for the sake of defending yourself as such. Don't, because I noticed that for most of us, I don't know what conditions us to be that way, but sometimes when someone is telling you they have issues, like we're talking about communication in terms of conflict now, you see it as an attack. Now this may depend on the way the person is putting their point across, but to a large extent it also depends on your own mind and how you view people correcting you. So you are just listening to catch all their points. And I think the best way to be gracious in listening is to put yourself in the person's shoes and try to listen from the person's perspective, not from your perspective. Not how you would have reacted in that situation or how you feel the person should have reacted, but knowing this person the way you do. If I were in your shoes, how would I feel?
Yeah.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah, honestly. And in let me say this before I forget. In conflict resolution, in communication, especially when there are issues, you need to apply this principle, and it has helped us. It is me and hobby versus the issue, not me versus hobby and the issue. So I'm not tackling hobby, it's both of us on one side, a team tackling the issue. So that way we are looking at it objectively and we are sitting down to really understand why it happened. But every time, and this is the case in most, the situation in most cases, every time you sit and it looks like it's your spouse you're attacking, then you're going to have a very faulty communication structure. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So staying on issue, I think it just boils down to everything.
Staying on the issue and then understanding. So if you're communicating with somebody, like I said, this is not just about conflict resolution generally, and you do not understand or some things are not clear, this is a good time to ask questions. And even if you have to ask questions and reject what the person is saying, please don't kill the person's dignity. Let there be at least some coins remaining in the person's life. Don't finish the person and say, what are you saying? What nonsense is this one? What are you even talking about? What you're saying does not make sense. Like, no. That bottom line, graciousness. So let your understanding be to really comprehend where the person is coming from. Going back to the I feel principle. I want to know why this person feels the way they. So I'm genuinely listening to understand. And that automatically will influence, responding.
And I feel like in conflict, there's always an underlying issue. And if you don't listen properly, if you don't speak properly, if the person doesn't understand properly, you will never find out what the issue is. So it's that thing like the Bible says, you keep attacking the fruit, but not the root cause of it. And we're talking about expectations before, and we said sometimes you don't even realize some expectations you have until you are in marriage. And those things that come up, or you also change in marriage. And you will not be able to understand that person until the person can communicate effectively. So these are all intertwined things. So for instance, my husband is upset that I did something that seemingly, or to me, is not that big of an issue. If I'm really listening properly and I'm trying to understand him, I may find out that, maybe he's feeling neglected because of this, or he has not gotten enough attention because of this. He may not even know what the underlying issue is, but if you don't go through those steps properly, you will not be able to get to the root cause.
And I know this is very debatable, but I feel like the ability to be understood rests on the speaker. Right? The ability to be understood. I know that you who is talking is expecting someone to understand you, but you have a role to play. Okay, let me balance it. Both parties have a role to play. Exactly. So you who is speaking need to communicate in such a way that you are clearly understood. So don't expect the person to be a mind reader. Like, don't you know what this my eye represents? When I eyed you like this the last time, what did you mean? Like, no, nobody's a mind reader. Don't put that kind of burden on somebody. So when you come with the purpose of achieving clarity, basically. And then we're also talking about some people that will just frustrate understanding out of the whole equation. I don't understand. I still don't understand.
What are you saying?
What are you saying? Yeah, for those of you, for the other person who is listening, don't be like that. Don't frustrate understanding. Just like ask questions. Ask real questions. Don't say, but
Okay, I've heard.
oh my God, that I've heard just used to kill me. And
I'm
then
guilty, as I said, but God has changed me.
hallelujah, sister.
I've heard.
And then responding, respond graciously. Respond graciously. You know, they say that the ability for a conflict to ensue or not lies with the responder. Have you want to argue that one?
No.
You agree?
That's why it's not good to put two liars.
I know. Sometimes. Like the responder determines whether or not a conflict ensues. So if I come now and I'm just using my husband, I went out to and also this person, we're now bought corn, we're not eating. Do you know that not responding to that my gist is a problem? I can't just be like, oh, I just told you something, no comment, you didn't say anything. So that can even be annoying. So at this point, I want to also say that not responding when you're supposed to respond can also fuel a conflict. Imagine he now says, so when I was waiting for you at home, you were buying corn. That's all he took from the gist. Wahala. So like, let your responses just match what you understood. Remember, I feel principle, talk. I'm listening to answer graciously. I respond gracious. I understand you. And where I do not understand you fully, I ask questions for clarifications. And then I respond in grace. The idea is to be understood.
The banger. I'm sorry, but.
I'm sorry,
but. Please, that's sorry, but.
It's not sorry. I'm telling you.
In the last decade, we saved the but. And apologize. Sometimes wisdom even dictates that you can just apologize to diffuse the situation. And if you felt there were things that were left unsaid, you can revisit it later when tensions have gone down or when the person is more settled and come back to it in a more mature way. But please don't keep it like opening the wound every time.
I'm telling you.
I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry.
But you know that's how I am. That's my character.
I'm telling you.
In my family, we're hot tempered.
I'm just human.
I'm
only human. Okay. Okay. You know, I think another thing couples need to be deliberate about is being deliberate about talking and communication and every other thing that communication stands for. I know you guys, I think you mentioned that you guys do something like that.
We did. There was a point in our so perfect lives where we were having so many issues. And being the girl that I am, I bundled my husband and we spoke to someone. Our counselors, our PMC counselors at a point, and there was something they said because I kept talking and I would not cry and be like, and that is how he and I'll talk and then he was like, no, that's how, and he will be upset and talking. And I thought they were going to sit down and probably be like, you, this is what you did, you, this is what you did. They just looked at us, they just said, see, so we go and talk. We're like, what? Like, I'm telling you, they're like, people should go home and talk. We're like, what do you mean? They said there is a breakdown of communication.
Yeah.
And what they told us was like, I don't mean go and gist too. I mean sit down and talk. And so for the next few weeks, it was almost more than a month. We had to set time. Every time we came back from work, we would sit down after eating and all that. We would sit down and actually speak about things. And we realized that there were so many gaps in communication because sometimes when you're busy and you're doing a lot of things, you have ideas and you think of things you want to do. You assume you've told your spouse, but you don't. Sometimes, I think I had that issue too. You assume you've told your spouse and you don't. And there are also times when you somehow trick yourself into believing that your spouse is not a mind reader. I mean, I've been married to you for the past few years, so you're supposed to enter my brain. I know how it's doing.
I know which tab to click.
Yes.
Especially if you're a tab somebody.
I'm telling you. So the person is supposed to enter your brain. But the last time this issue came up, this is what I did. So the person should know that automatically this is what I'll do the next time. So we sat down and we spoke, and it really, really did help us. And it was like one of the steps we took. So I realized that what I would advise anybody is that, especially when you're having lots of quarrels, you know that period when the thing is like spiritual attack.
Back to back.
It hits back to back. You're always quarreling. I advise that when you get to that point, you shouldn't get to that point really, but when you're at that point, sometimes one of the solutions you should look into is actually setting aside time, even if it's like appointments, and sit down. And that communication, there is no interruption from your children, from your phone, from anybody. Just sit down
time
and speak about it. Like, if this thing is not solved, we will not move from this mountain, that kind of thing.
There's something we used to do when we started doing, when we were dating, and we are still doing now. I remember then, because it was a long distance relationship, we had to rely a lot on phone conversations, So when we are speaking at night, he'll say, tell me about your day. I used to find it very tiring. As in, I just want to say, oh, my day was fine. And then if there is something spectacular, you want to just talk about the highlights of the day. And he's like, no, from when you woke up. I'm like, what? So at that time, it wasn't even the recharge card, we're spending out, but just the strength of talking and giving. So I woke up, I brushed my teeth. I didn't use my yellow toothpaste, I used the grey one. And I didn't use my blue toothbrush either. And then I wore this, as if my husband wanted those kind of details. Who you said hello to, whether you had headache, how the headache felt like, was it the side headache? But at first it took me a long time to eventually get in the groove of that kind of reporting. As far as I was concerned, it's like you're reporting your day-to-day activities. But I realized that some of these tiny things build up. First of all, it causes you guys to bond. And for us, it was very important that he knew a lot of these things, because it was a distant relationship at some point. But more importantly, it helps him see me for real and helps me see him. Sometimes you're reporting these details and you know that the person is already analyzing, okay, this is how she is under stress, this is how she is when she's happy, or these are the kind of things she loves. So the person is basically getting to know you better. So that's why we're saying that communication is key. And then there's the part where you were talking about that you guys had to take out time. And I'm sure that when you guys went to talk, it wasn't about deep things of life and the future. It was just, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, at first, and it was even it was weird at first, like, what are we doing here? But with time, as we began to talk, we were losing the then we began to actually delve into issues, and we were speaking deep. So it's ebbs and flows. Some days you're deep, some other days you're just shallow. But you should be able to, on any wavelength, you should be able to talk. That's the point.
Communication is key. And the kind of approach you take to communication determines who your spouse is to you, because there are about 5 levels of communication. There is parts where the person is just on a cliche question and answer basis. How are you? Fine. Good morning. And there are times like that in marriage when you're like, your food is ready, I'm going out, cheers, bye. So you need to be careful. Then there's another part where the person is just comfortable telling you about gist in the office, but they don't tell you the role they play. Nothing personal. That's the reporting of fact level of communication. There's another part where the person begins to tell you a little bit about their judgment and decisions, but they don't even open up completely. And they are watching you to see if what they are saying is well accepted by you. And if you show any form of disapproval, they just become, quiet and go back into their caves. And then there is the part where someone gets comfortable telling you about their feelings and their decisions and the reasons why they made certain, their judgments, basically. At that time, they're still, careful, but it's you can see the progress from cliche statements to being open about feelings. And then there's a part where everybody should strive to get to, where you're completely open. Now, the problem is that nobody wants to get there, or people struggle to get there because that level of communication involves a lot of risks. It involves you opening up, being vulnerable, being criticized, being rejected, and a lot of us do not like to get to that point of communication, that level of communication. Well, that's actually the level you need to get to in any relationship for it to thrive. I should just be able to come to my husband and share my fears and be vulnerable to him and be, completely open emotionally and otherwise. I know of a friend of mine who talk about every single thing in their marriages. They talk about every time I don't know how to say this, but every time they make love, they actually review, how were we? Oh, we're good. Oh, awesome. Oh, I liked this. I didn't like this. I'm like, but seriously, that's where we should get to in our relationship. And just by way of recap, we talked about communication. We talked about the definition of communication. We talked about the aspects the physical, the content, the tone, and the non-verbal gestures of communication. We just finished talking about 5 levels of communication. Then we talked about in details the 4 components of communication, what communication really entails: talking, listening, responding, understanding, and then responding. You might want to have a discussion with your friend, spouse to be, or your spouse, and know which areas in your relationship or which areas in your communication you need to work on. And guess what? Communication is a skill, so you only get better with time. So give yourself some time to get better, but you deliberate about it. Any final words?
Yeah, we can do it. I just feel like sometimes when we say things like this, it makes us seem sanctimonious, or as if we are very perfect.
If only you knew. If only you know.
But we're saying that just at this point, as we reflect, we realize that there were times when we didn't put these principles we didn't actualize these principles, and we suffered, we were burnt. There were other times we did, and we enjoyed the benefits. And it's better to just do the right thing. And essentially, I think everyone should strive to get to that place you're talking about, to be completely vulnerable, to be in sync with your spouse, and just to respect each other and love each other.
You guys go out there and communicate. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you were blessed. Don't forget to subscribe. Guess what? This week too, I would leave a communication quiz for you to take with your friends, alone, however, just to see where you are with your communication skill, and to know what areas you guys need to improve. Keep practicing and keep getting better. Keep making wise choices. Don't forget, this is Choices with Chichi, and until next week, remain blessed. Don't forget to subscribe. Cheers. See ya. Peace.